All right, guys, this is a solo episode and it's going to be an interesting one. Um Welcome back. Tonight we need to talk about a timeline so chaotic it feels like it was written by a glitching AI engine, but it's completely real. We are looking at a masterclass in the duck and weave tactic. Last month in Washington, D.C., a line was drawn in the sand. Dave the Viking laid down a direct, no nonsense challenge to Jake Lang, a sanctioned face to face bout set for this coming July, Independence Day. No more talking, no more internet posturing, just stepping into the ring and settling it. But instead of training, instead of answering the direct messages that Dave has been sending to absolutely no avail, Jake Lang has spent the last month embarking on one of the most bizarre, frantic legal evasion tours in modern internet history. He has been free for a grand total of about 2 days out of the last 2 weeks, pulling stunt after stunt, getting arrested, getting locked up, getting released, and immediately getting arrested again. When you step back and you look at the puzzle pieces, the picture becomes glaringly obvious. Jake Lang is terrified of July, and he is doing everything in his power to ensure he is behind bars or deeply entangled in legal chaos so that he can claim forces beyond his control, quote unquote, kept him from facing Dave. But let's break down the madness of the last couple of weeks, shall we? Act 1, the Tennessee Detour and the Chud the Bailout flop. Or as Dave has said, Chode the Bailout. To understand why Jake is currently in handcuffs yet again, we gotta take a look back at where this specific legal tailspin all started. Tennessee. So the action was on Jake's Tennessee timeline here. He showed up at a Tennessee courtroom and caused a massive scene. And because of that, he was arrested on the spot for contempt of court and held for 10 days. And this was during a hearing for Chud the Builder, um, which he decided to blurt out and ask out of questions, raise his hand, just entirely crazy. And so, yeah, last month, outright live streamer Dalton Etherly, who's better known as Chud the Builder, was arrested in Clarksville, Tennessee after a highly publicized courthouse shooting where he shot someone multiple times and managed to accidentally shoot himself in the arm in the process. He was slapped with an attempted murder charge and a massive $1.25 million bail. Okay, so Chud's camp tried to raise money for his bail, but the funds were flat out refused on behalf of his bail conditions. Enter Jake Lang, trying to play the ultimate hero and completely flip the script on Dave the Viking's fight challenge. So, Jake went in there and flies into Tennessee to personally insert himself into Chud's court proceedings, and it went exactly as poorly as one could imagine. Jake couldn't keep his mouth shut through a series of wild outbursts in front of Judge H. Reed Pullen III and was promptly led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. So that was 10 days. 10 days down, 10 days where Dave the Viking is sitting in his DMs asking, are we doing this in July or what? And Jake is just conveniently locked away, unable to answer. But then instead of focusing on the fight with Dave in July, Jake tries to organize an entirely separate fight event, quote unquote, fundraiser, claiming the proceeds would go towards freeing Chud. And, what? So you get challenged by Dave the Viking, and then you immediately go and you act a fool in a Tennessee courthouse, and then you get arrested, and then you get released to say you want to start a fight in order to fundraise to get an alleged attempted murderer bailed out after his bail is already, like, his people already raised over $100,000 for his bail that was denied. So I don't see how this fight event would even, that funds would be accepted either, but I digress. Let's go to Act 2, the 48-hour freedom sprint. Now, this is where it really gets crazy. We're talking about this guy gets around from New Jersey to Texas. Jake finally gets out of jail in Tennessee, and he only stays a free man for roughly 2 days. And instead of laying low, keeping his head down, and responding to Dave, he decides to go on a multi state shock jock sprint to guarantee another arrest. So, June 1st, yesterday, he has a U-Haul meltdown in New Jersey. On June 1st, he pops up in New Jersey. He rented a moving U-Haul truck, climbed on the roof of it while it was in motion, and decided to kick off Pride Month, quote unquote, in this vitriolic, hate-filled speech, the most crazy thing I've ever seen. And he starts burning a rainbow flag, screaming vitriolic commentary into the wind while simultaneously shouting, quote unquote, happy Pride Month in a bizarre, manic display of obvious attention seeking behavior. He didn't stay in New Jersey long, though. And remember, he did this in front of Delaney Hall, where there's all kinds of crazy things happening. But he didn't stay there long enough to face any immediate music, of course, because he immediately booked it back down south. And that brings us to June 2nd, which is the Texas pivot today. Fast forward to today, Jake Lang surfaces in Texas, and within moments, the cuffs are back on him. But here's where the script flipped into pure comedy. Just weeks ago, his entire brand was hyper-nationalistic, anti-Islam, and deeply aggressive. But as he's being arrested in Texas today, he took the same stance as he did yesterday. I guess this is now sarcastic satire or form of comedy, if you will. He shifted gears entirely, and suddenly he's screaming into the cameras about protecting Muslims and telling people to keep fighting Americans. But I want you to think about the sheer whiplash-inducing contradiction of this behavior over the past 24-hour period. Monday, he's on top of a U-Haul in New Jersey, burning flags and screaming hate while saying, Happy Pride Month. And Tuesday, he's in handcuffs in Texas, screaming completely inverted anti-American, pro-Muslim defense narratives that don't make any sense as he's being put into a patrol car. This is the behavior of a man who has completely lost the plot, or worse, is a man who is deliberately throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, desperately trying to create enough noise to drown out the one question he refuses to answer. Why have you still not responded to Dave's question about the fight? Seriously? Come on, Jake. That brings me to Act 3, connecting the dots. Why is Jake Lang running? Let's tie this all together, because the math here isn't hard to do. Dave the Viking gave him a clear out, a physical challenge, a July bout. Dave has been a professional about it. He's tried to DM him privately, tried to get a contract signed and paperwork going, tried to make the event an official sanctioned event that they plan the logistics for. And Jake's response? 1, he tries to steal Dave's concept to raise money for a guy charged with attempted murder, Chode the Builder. 2, he gets himself jailed for 10 days for throwing a tantrum in a courtroom. Seriously? And 3, he gets out, spends 48 hours acting like an absolute lunatic on top of a rental truck in New Jersey, and immediately gets arrested again in Texas while shouting the exact opposite of his usual political rhetoric. Every single action Jake Lang has taken since Dave challenged him has been designed to build a legal fortress of excuses. If you are constantly in a different state's jail cell, you don't have to step into a ring with a man who will expose you for being the little wimp that you really are. You don't have to explain why you've ignored his DMs. You get to play the victim of the system rather than the victim of a left-hand hook. You're really afraid to lose those teeth, aren't you, Jake? Here's my verdict. Jake Lang wants you to look at his arrest as proof that he's a quote-unquote warrior fighting on the front lines of his supposed delusional cultural battle. But the reality is much simpler and far more embarrassing. He's a clout chaser, a grifter, who's run out of steam the second that a real challenger called his bluff. And July's coming quick, y'all. Dave the Viking's been trying to get ready. And unless Jake plans on spending the entire summer hiding out in a county jail in Texas, he's eventually going to have to show up and face the music. Thanks for tuning in as always. Drop your comments below on what you think. Do you think Jake the Lang ever intended to step into the ring with Dave the Viking? Or was the last few weeks just an elaborate escape hatch? Stay tuned, and remember, the mind is the most important story that we'll ever tell. This has been The Mind of Cybery.